Here we are at LO4, which is about ecosystems. By the end of the video, you're going to know the difference between an abiotic and biotic factor, a generalist and a specialist, and be able to describe the flow of energy through any given ecosystem. Just a quick refresher, so far we've talked about classifying organisms, domain, kingdom, phylum, etc., and also using dichotomous keys to identify organisms that we don't know their name. We've discussed the concept of ecology and interconnectedness, and just the idea that everything affects everything else in the biosphere. One step down from the biosphere is what we're looking at today, an ecosystem. An ecosystem is all of the living and the non-living things in a certain place. The components of an ecosystem include the abiotic factors, which are the non-living things, soil, sun, temperature, water, etc. In the word abiotic, you see the word bio. Bios means life, a means without, so these are things that are without life. Water is not alive. Biotic factors are the opposite. In an ecosystem, it's the living stuff. The animals, plants, fungi, and protists. If you look at the picture at the bottom, that lake ecosystem, some biotic factors would be the trees, the lily pads, the fish. Abiotic factors would be the water, the stones at the bottom of the lake, etc. So here's a really nice picture that I did not draw, but I wish I could take credit for. I want you to pick out 2 biotic and 2 abiotic factors. Pause me, come back to me in a minute or so when you have your information, and then see how you did. The biotic factors that you could have picked, there's tons. The flowers, the grass, the birds, there's little chicks in the corner, the fish, the rodents, the giant rabbit, which is disproportionate compared to everything else. Abiotic factors would include the air, the soil, the water, anything that's not alive. When we look at an ecosystem, each organism that's there has a niche. A niche is not a place. It's the role that the species plays in the ecosystem. And this includes how it interacts with abiotic and biotic factors. 2 important aspects, and of course there are more, but these are just 2 important aspects that make up an organism's niche, is what it eats and how it obtains its food. If you have 2 organisms that occupy the same niche, they eat the same things, they kind of live in the same place because that is part of it, they get their food in the same way, they're going to have competition. And too much competition can eventually lead to wiping out an organism. So we have 2 general words to describe the niches of organisms, and of course this is not black and white, there are some that are kind of between. On one end we have a generalist. A generalist has a broad niche. This means that it can tolerate lots of conditions, it uses many different resources, eats lots of different things. Think of raccoons, possums. You find them in many, many places. They aren't really picky about what they eat. In fact, they're kind of obnoxious. So that's our generalist. The opposite is a specialist. A specialist is known as having a very narrow niche. It specializes. It can only thrive in certain places, or its diet is very limited. For example, the koala, it only eats eucalyptus leaves. So if something happens to the eucalyptus trees, the koalas will no longer exist. Very narrow niche, it's a specialist. The last concept about ecosystems for today is the flow of energy. Energy always starts as sunlight or chemicals. So the picture on the right, you have tube worms, live so deep in the ocean they can't get sunlight, so the energy is going to start there from chemical compounds. You have a producer or an autotroph that uses that energy and simple organic molecules in the environment to make organic compounds. We talked about photosynthesis, and glucose is an organic compound that is needed for energy. We have 2 types of producers. A photoautotroph uses the sun. Photo means light. Whereas a chemoautotroph, chemo means chemicals. Think chemotherapy for cancer. Translate that word and it's literally chemical treatment. So a chemoautotroph uses chemicals to make its food. It doesn't do photosynthesis, it does chemosynthesis. Once your energy is made from a producer, then that needs to be passed on. So a consumer is an organism that eats something else to get its food. This is all animals, all fungi, some bacteria, some plants, some protists. We have categories, and these words should be familiar to you. You should probably learn these in elementary school. An herbivore eats plants or algae. A carnivore eats animals. Some carnivores can eat plants, but they don't really digest it well, so they don't. There are some types of carnivores that are called obligate carnivores. They're obligated to eat only meat. Their bodies physically cannot digest plants. And then lastly, we have omnivores, which eat both plants and animals. Humans are omnivores. If you have a human vegetarian, they're an herbivore. You don't have too many human obligate carnivores. Decomposers, so we have producers make the energy, consumers pass it on. Decomposers are kind of the last step in this cycle. They're the ones that break down remains and wastes, and they recycle those nutrients back to the environment for the plants and other producers to use again. We have different categories of decomposers, and you might not be as familiar with these. Scavengers are like vultures. They consume the tissues of dead animals. Detritivores eat detritus. Detritus is dead leaves, feces, which is poop, organic debris, stuff at the soil, the filter feeders, the bottom feeders. They just eat the stuff that's kind of left over. And then saprotrophs are another group that feed on leftovers. I guess these all really feed on leftovers if you think about it. Saprotrophs feed on the remains of organic matter that's left only after other decomposers do their work. So they're just kind of the cleanup crew. Your job to wrap up this learning objective is to draw me a picture of an ecosystem. And yes, I want it color and to look nice. I will have another option if you consider yourself artistically challenged. In that ecosystem, so pick a place, draw and label 4 abiotic factors, so label that they're abiotic, tell me what they are. 2 producers, 1 herbivore, 1 carnivore, and 1 decomposer. Pick which decomposer. We just talked about 3 different types. You pick one and tell me what kind of decomposer it is. All of the objects and organisms in your ecosystem have to belong in that environment. So I should not see a cactus in the middle of the tundra. You have a computer. Use it. Research what belongs in that ecosystem. If you're artistically challenged, what you can do is find a picture of a landscape, and all I want is the landscape. And then add separate single pictures of the above requirements, the biotic and abiotic factors, and you could either, if you're really good at computers, put your landscape as the background and then layer on your pictures on top of that, or just cut and paste and do it physically in front of you. Pictures should be generally to scale, so I don't want to see giant rabbits like in that other picture that I showed you before. And each thing that you add should be single. I don't want you to take a desert ecosystem and find a picture that has a cactus and, whatever organism, a snake, belong in there. I want just the background, and then you add on picture by picture the biotic and abiotic factors that I'm looking for. If you are doing the artistically challenged option, I do not want to see handwriting on your thing, except for maybe your name. That would be fine. But I want everything labeled and typed, and then print everything in color. So hopefully now you can tell me the difference between an abiotic, biotic factor, a generalist, a specialist, and then use those words herbivore, carnivore, etc. to describe how energy flows through an ecosystem. If you have any questions about the assignment, make sure to come talk to me, and I'll be more than willing to help walk you through it.